But I remember taking a little ceramics course in maybe 5th grade, and I was starting to do the little figure, and the teacher came by and said, no, you want to do an ashtray. And she took the clay out of my hands and made this very boring, ugly thing. And I guess I realized how important it is to have your own input. I studied in Europe at l'École des Beaux-Arts in Geneva for 2 years, and it was really a wonderful traditional training, which meant that you studied and you analyzed, and the professor did something that when I taught at the Art Academy, never would have done. He came by with a small knife, and he would cut off what he didn't like, boom, down to the floor. So you were really humbled. You realized that you had a great tradition behind you, and it was good to observe it, to analyze it, digest it, and then to gradually find your own voice. This is the mother mold. I just sort of start with the clay and I start moving, and things will come to me, thoughts come to me as I'm working. I do sketch, but I don't follow the sketches, because for me that would be roping myself in too tightly. The clay piece can take as long as a month, and then I make a synthetic rubber mold, polyurethane mold, and you paint the liquid onto your clay, and when it's a certain thickness, you then do a mother mold. So if you can imagine, it's like 2 halves of a walnut, protecting this rubber. When all that's set up, you undo it, you peel off the rubber, you put it into the mother mold, and that's when you paint in molten wax. The next step is you adhere it with more molten wax to a plywood board, because you have to make a plaster silica flour mold around it. Then you start melting the wax out with propane. Once it's melted out, I get help, obviously, putting it into my annealing oven, and it dries for about a week. Then I don't pour glass. Glass is, I get it in dolls or in billets, which are basically rectangular pieces that are created at either Bullseye or Blanco. And I break them up. I wear goggles and I wear a mask, and I use a heavy mallet that I used when I was learning stone carving in Europe. And I break it into pieces, and the pieces can't be too small, because if they're too small, they capture a lot of air around it, and then it's not transparent. And you place them piece by piece until it's sort of a mountain. And if you have another color, you need a mountain of that color. I'm always looking at volumes. It's the shapes, it's something that will, I don't think I'm thinking of the final product. I want to do something that I think entices somebody to look and to analyze and to sort of walk around and to maybe travel my piece. And for me, it's constantly looking and analyzing. I'm not on this earth to do pleasant little things. I don't want to do sweet little things. So that it's serious and that it carries a message, but I'm not always going to tell you what the message is. I would prefer if you could see it. I think life cannot always be easy, and I think if you have that burning light inside of you, that desire, it puts you in a different world while you're working on your passion. And it enriches you and gives you something to dream about, to hope about, which is very important. There's something about glass that's very enticing. I never thought it would be, but it is. And maybe it's that mystery that you're never sure, is the color going to go where you want it. But before that, it's doing the sculpture in clay. It's where you're analyzing, the volumes and how they work together. And sometimes it's very frustrating. And, you close down, you go home the next day. I see what I can do. So for me, it really is what I remember, what explains me to the world. I'm a sculptor. And I adore it. And I think about it all the time.